It is not often in the field of government planning that so vast a blueprint is carried forward in so short a period into the reality of steel and concrete. In fact, only one of the essential arteries of that comprehensive plan of 1954 is still unrealized, the very necessary Lower Manhattan Expressway.
Nightcap, Old 92.3, we're playing a game of Finish the Lyric. I give you a lyric, and you guess the song that is next up on our playlist. We have Keith from Staten Island on the phone, and he thinks he knows the answer to the question, if you just joined us. Lyric, I should say. Make out like it never happened. Make out like it never happened. What song is that, Keith?
Somebody that I used to know.
Nice. Do you know the artist?
Go Ty.
Go Ty, go TA.
Let me offer another suggestion. Why not demonstrate a lively interest in the rest of New York? There will always be latent jealousy of mid-Manhattan because it is a symbol of wealth, affluence, and luxury. You must overcome the normal, natural jealousy of conspicuous wealth harbored by the less fortunate and opulent people of the city who live away from the main stem. You can do this by demonstrating a genuine interest in their welfare. Why not show less prosperous people that they have a stake in the roaring 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s? There are scores of ways of doing this. Support the rebuilding of other parts of town, adequate housing, enough schools, parks, and playgrounds. Be willing to share their cost without grumbling. You might also do something handsome and even sentimental, like paying for bulbs and flowers on thoroughfares and places which need the green of growing things. Suppose you make lilacs bloom in other parts of town. I admire the spunk and confidence exhibited by the entrepreneur who put up great buildings in Midtown Manhattan. But I'm appalled by their indifference and that of the banks which loan the money to the curses of overcrowding and traffic congestion, and their manifest contempt, except when they run afoul of the law and need favors, variations, or amendments for public officials. They don't
Gen X did sell out, invent all things millennial, and cause everything else that's great and awful. And Evan Dando knows he's lucky. Alex, welcome home.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
So what prompted this series of times?
Well, I mean, the funny thing is that here we are as Generation X, we're in our 40s and 50s, we're in theory, we're at the apex of our power and influence, and still nobody cares.
Mr. Lindsay, a state Lower Manhattan Expressway. I wonder if you would clarify your administration position right now. The question of the Lower Manhattan.
Well, the Moses plan is for an elevated structure, which I'm opposed to, and I'm against it, and we'll stop it. A depressed highway is not as bad. It is also bad. It's the least desirable of the alternatives. But I have given the Mayor's Council on Transportation instruction to make a survey for which they can receive federal funds, incidentally, of the alternative routes, including the depressed highway. Although I told them that my personal view of the depressed highway was that it was the least desirable, and I'd hope that they could examine other alternatives.
Mr. Mayor, a state corrections commission has conducted an investigation into the woman's house of detention.
Yours is the problem of maintaining the supremacy of a great boulevard at the very core of the city. There is more to solving this problem than slogans, trade association cliches, dependence on the past and reliance on the connotations of a famous name, more even than imagination, boldness, new styles, and the meeting of new demands. In New York, everything is overdone on the theory that nothing exceeds like excess. In a town of tiresome superlatives, I live in hope of hearing an occasional understatement, for this too is a form of emphasis.
Coming now. Huh? I gotta go, nigga.
Now, we have other problems here in the city. The arterial problem is a tremendous one, and you people have quite a stake in it. I venture to say that if any further obstacles are put in our way through short-sightedness or opposition of other kinds, politics and whatnot, we simply will not be able to solve our arterial problem. The arterial problem, I'm speaking now, of course, of roads, highways, expressways, is part of the general traffic problem. To give you an idea of what we're up against, our expressway program in New York City, which connects with the big expressways and throughways outside of the city, leading into New Jersey, leading upstate, leading into Connecticut, that program is costing over $5 million a mile. Now, it isn't only the cost. Somehow or other, we must find the means of meeting that. But there's the problem of moving people, which gets more serious all the time. I don't honestly believe that, considering the large numbers of people we've had to move out of the way of public housing and other public improvements, arterial improvements, schools, and parks and whatnot, I don't believe that we've done any very substantial amount of harm. You're never going to get unanimous approval of any of these projects. If you try to please everybody, you're not going to accomplish anything. There must be people who are discommoded, inconvenienced, or call it what you will, on the old theory that you can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs. Now, I do want to point out this to you who are primarily interested in New York City, and that is that all problems are not solved by moving into the suburbs. Many of these great treks and movements way out of town, which are easily understandable, veterans and others who want houses and they want them reasonably cheaply and they want them in a hurry and they're impatient. Many of these movements bring with them problems that very few people think about.
What makes the very intricate order of the city? This has to do with a quality that's called, rather vaguely, urbanism, and I think has been mostly thought of in the past as a kind of atmosphere and a rather mysterious thing. It's like somebody having personality or they don't have personality, and how do you explain it? Or it's an intangible sort of thing. Well, I think it is not an intangible sort of thing, and that it's very explainable indeed. Cities are extremely physical places. People in cities are not just masses of people. They are people behaving, well, they are people with certain relationships to each other. It's a very intricate place, a city. It's not an inert mass. It's enterprises and people reacting in certain ways to each other and mutually supporting each other. The first thing, in a way, that I began to look at in a systematic way was how this quality called urbanism works. Not what it is as an atmosphere, but how it actually works as certain forces, certain forms of behavior, certain things happening. Then, and I began to see that to make it work properly, and wherever it did work properly, there seemed to be an awful lot of diversity. Many different kinds of enterprises, many different kinds of people in a small geographical area, mutually supporting and supplementing each other. But you can't get such a thing by wishful thinking. This things working like this, where they do in real life, don't just happen to because you wish they would. And that was another thing that began to disturb me. I began to read very carefully any descriptions of urbanism, any eulogies to this quality of cities at their liveliest and happiest and most convenient and so forth, and then notice what prescriptions were given to achieve this. And the prescriptions, just as the projects and the rebuilding had been, seemed to me all wishful thinking. They had nothing at all to do with the conditions that actually exist in areas of cities that are successful and lively and convenient and well loved. So then I began to try to see what conditions are necessary to produce